So there's been a scene that I've been wanting to talk about specifically, and that is when you meet Sephiroth for the first time in Final Fantasy VII Remake. We see this scene, it's extremely satisfying. I mean, it's the first time we were seeing Sephiroth in a very long time. And we see him in this scene. He's essentially tormenting Cloud. He is tormenting him. He is playing with him. We even see a flashback of Cloud's mom dying in a burning house, which is how we originally envisioned that scene playing out. You know, it's in the original game. And we see that taking place here in the remake. And then Sephiroth mentions that he personally killed Cloud's mother. How her flesh yielded to the cold steel of his sword, the Masamune. And, like, that hurts. It really, really hurts, and it resonates extremely well. After this confrontation, you know, Cloud goes in to strike Sephiroth, and he's just an illusion, and he says, "Good. Build up that hatred." And then everything sort of starts going back to normal. And Cloud stands for a moment, brushes back his hair, and he says, "Man, that Mako, it's making me go crazy. I'm seeing things." Something along those lines. Now listen. The song that plays right after that scene is a song called The Promised Land, which I believe to be composed originally by Nobuo Uematsu. That song is from the opening of Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, a movie that takes place after the original Final Fantasy VII. What are their intentions there? What are they trying to do there? This is a spoiler discussion on Final Fantasy VII Remake if you haven't already figured it out. If you have not played this game yet, probably don't watch this. If you don't really care, sure, continue watching. I'm sure, you know, at this point you've already been spoiled on the thing. The game released like a week early, I think, in some territories, so you probably don't care at this point. But if you have not touched this game yet and intend on playing it, I highly, highly recommend you click off this video and, you know, go back to it at another time. Sephiroth essentially in this game is from the future. That's what the game sort of leads us on to believe. So at the end of the game, I'm going to give you guys sort of a refresher, or those that don't really understand the ending. At the end of this game, the player is met with this force, or throughout the game I should say, there is this force that is attacking our player. These ghosts, these whispers, these Arbiters of Fate. These Arbiters of Fate essentially have one task, and that is to make the original game happen. To make things play out the same way they did in the original PS1 classic. Every single time we deviate from that path, every single time we move from the path that was originally set out in the original PS1 classic, the ghosts appear. This is something that I've noticed through subsequent playthroughs and discussions I've had online. It's true. This happens. And it happens pretty early in the game. And that is when Sephiroth pulls us, that first encounter with Sephiroth, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Sephiroth is doing that intentionally, I'll say that, but we'll get back to that. As soon as that encounter ends with Sephiroth, we hear The Promised Land playing, which is just an incredible, incredible composition. One of my favorite tracks in the game, to be real with you. And the remake rendition, the remade rendition of this track is just unreal. And it resonated so much with me. I remember streaming it for the first time. I was tearing up. I felt that weight. I felt that the gravity of the situation and what is going on. But I didn't fully understand it until now. So, we move on to Aerith. After that scene, we are meeting up with Aerith, and this is when she hands us the flower. Now, that happens in the original game. You know this. But we see Aerith trying to walk off. Essentially, Sephiroth was trying to pull us away from Aerith and have that meeting be postponed, or maybe even not at all. Because the dialogue that happens in the alleyway, Sephiroth says, "Leave, Cloud. Get out of Midgar. Just leave the city. Leave it all behind. Move on from this. You have to live, Cloud. You have to." He says this. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but those are pretty much his exact lines in that situation. The ghosts then appear when we're meeting up with Aerith. And essentially what the ghosts are trying to do is have us meet Aerith. Aerith, we have to meet her. We have to see her in this situation. Those are how the circumstances work. She has to hand us the flower because that's what happens in the original game. Then later on in the game, we are about to go on to the second bombing run. And for some reason, in this remake, we are not allowed to go with them. Barrett mentions that, hey, Cloud, you're good, man. We don't need you anymore. This is more about Avalanche. This is a personal mission. We can do this without you. We don't need a mercenary's help. That doesn't happen in the original. In the original, it's like, yeah, we're gung-ho. Let's go, Cloud. Come on. That doesn't happen here. And Cloud is seen to be a little disappointed by this fact. Tifa's a little disappointed, and Jessie is as well. And it's sort of this weird moment where, as a player, I was like, huh? What is going on here? Why aren't we going on this second bombing run right now? Then we go to sleep later on that day. A ghost appears, and I believe this is the second or third time the ghosts actually come about. A ghost appears and floats above our head, above Cloud's head, as he's sleeping, and says, "Good, sleep. Dream the sweetest of dreams." Again, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but essentially that's what he says. Telling us to sleep through what is about to happen. And what is about to happen is Jessie is going to be hurt. Jessie gets hurt after this huge confrontation with these ghosts. Now Barrett, Jessie, everyone can see these. Tifa as well. We can see these ghosts. And it's a startling moment. It's a huge moment. It's one of the biggest deviations that happens in the entire remake, until the very end, of course. And essentially what the ghosts are trying to do is hurt Jessie, because Cloud has to go on to the second bombing mission, get wrecked by the airbuster, have the bridge explode, and have Cloud fall down and meet Aerith again. Because that is important, integral, detrimental to how the course of the story flows in the original game. The ghosts are trying to make the original game happen, but it's not. So the ghosts have to intervene. The ghosts are like, hang on, what's going on in this timeline? Why is Cloud not allowed on the second bombing run? What is going on? We have to fix this. We have to intervene, and we have to get in there. Let's put Cloud to sleep, let him fall asleep while we wreck house at 7th Heaven and hurt Jessie so she cannot go and Cloud has to go. Because that's the only thing that'll make Barrett say, hey, I guess we gotta invite Cloud. I guess that's our only option because I believe Biggs has already taken off for the mission. He's already, like, the mission's already begun before they even leave. Biggs is already setting stuff up and everything. And the ghosts sort of fail. Cloud breaks free, probably because of he's already kind of onto something. He knows that something is going on with these ghosts. He's already seen them once, you know, regarding Sephiroth and his first meeting with Aerith and stuff. So he's already a little spooked by that. So he's able to sort of not listen to them and break free of that. And then we eventually fight the ghosts, but the ghosts still find a way to intervene and hurt Jessie. And we are still going on to the second bombing run. We still meet Aerith. And it's that I've noticed. I think it's a brilliant thing. I think it's a really brilliant thing when a game can be so revealing on its second playthrough, on its third playthrough. Even just rewatching the cutscenes. You don't even have to replay it. I recommend replaying it, but you don't have to. That stuff is present, and it's shocking. It is absolutely shocking, and it has been keeping me up at night. It really has. Now, where am I going with this? Why do the ghosts have to make this happen? Why do the ghosts have to make the game happen the way that it has? Essentially because that's how we stop Sephiroth in the long run. That's how we end Sephiroth. We have to follow the path of the original game. Because if we don't, Sephiroth will win. Now, this is all theory, I should mention. This is all theory, but it's backed by a lot of sort of seeds that Square Enix sort of dropped in this remake. Again, take this stuff with the tiniest grain of salt. It's not factual, but this is what I believe at this point. This is what has been keeping me up at night. I'm not even joking. I've been going to bed at like 10 o'clock in the morning the last couple of days, right after I beat Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because I've just been analyzing these scenes, rewatching it, replaying it, hearing other people talk about it, and it's just been wrecking me. It has been absolutely wrecking me. So, Sephiroth is from the future. This is not the Sephiroth that is in the Northern Crater. This is Sephiroth after Advent Children. Again, a movie that is set after the original Final Fantasy, the original 7, after OG7. It's 2 years after the OG7 the movie takes place in. Sephiroth has entered our timeline. He has gone back in time through the life stream, which is backed up. It is logical in this world, because if you've played the original game, you know Bugenhagen speaks of this stuff. Bugenhagen tells the player that the life stream is absolute. No matter what time, no matter what area you're in, no matter what is going on, it is absolute. He mentions this. I don't know how Sephiroth did this. That's probably going to be talked about in future games, but Sephiroth has gone back in time. He is now back in time, and that already alters the timeline. Just him literally stepping foot in this remake's timeline changes things. And we know this right off the bat, too. We know this right off the bat because the game begins. Literally, the first scene of the game, you know, we see the camera moving around outside of Midgar. We see all this crazy stuff happening in Midgar, the kids riding their bikes and everything. Incredible intro, by the way. Then we see Aerith sitting there, and this is how the original game began, right? We see her there in the alleyway. She's looking at the Mako coming out of the pipe, and then she walks out into the street. Only there's something a little bit different here. There's already the first deviation at this very beginning scene. Little notes, little tiny notes, very subtle, very epic, play in the background of the original theme. We hear lyrics from One Winged Angel, which is the final boss theme of the entire game. It's an iconic track. One Winged Angel is an incredible track, and it's sort of sprinkled throughout the entire game, actually. But that's the first notes we hear of it. We hear this opera singer singing the notes of One Winged Angel. And then we see Aerith frightened. She looks to the other side of the alleyway, the dark side of the alleyway, not going out into the street, further down the alleyway. And we see shadows over there, and she's afraid. And she walks out the alleyway in fright. She's not leaving the alleyway just to, oh, let's walk into the city. She's scared. She bumps into people on the street. She drops one of her flowers or whatever. She is frightened, because that is Sephiroth arriving. Now, I don't know if this is Sephiroth, this is as soon as he got here, like, oh, he just appeared in some random alleyway in Midgar. I don't know if it's like that, but this is where Sephiroth first makes his presence known. His presence known to Aerith, to Midgar. And it's told to us right then and there. And just that alone is haunting. Like, when I first played it, I'm like, wait, what is going on? Why is she scared? Who is that in the alleyway? What's down there? And then we see the first encounter with Sephiroth happens to be in an alleyway. And that just tells us right then and there that this is not the same Sephiroth. Something is happening here. Because Sephiroth didn't do this in the original game. And we know that the ghosts are there to veer the path in the right direction. So why is this happening? Why is Sephiroth doing this? That I don't know. But it is made clear that if they follow the path of the original game, Sephiroth will be defeated. Sephiroth knows this because he's been defeated in the Advent Children timeline. At the end of Final Fantasy VII, he has been defeated. He's made this present. So he goes into this timeline, alters it, changes it, and even goes as far as having the players destroy the Arbiters of Fate, destroy Destiny. Literally, physically destroying Destiny. Which is a little goofy on itself, but it's necessary for Sephiroth to succeed, because now the ghost can't stop them. The ghost can't veer them in the right path. Now the players don't know what to do. Now the party doesn't know what to do because it won't have the ghost there guiding them. Now the ghosts are only there because of Sephiroth being there. They would have made these decisions without the ghost being there in the original game. But because Sephiroth's there and changing things, the ghosts have to be there. Because Sephiroth pulled Cloud into the alleyway and spooked him, he would have been late in meeting Aerith. Aerith would have walked off by that point, and Cloud would have never met her there. She would have never handed the flower to him. But the ghosts were keeping Aerith there so that Cloud can catch up and finally meet her. Everything sort of begins in that alleyway with Sephiroth. Even his dialogue is just haunting, and he's just tormenting Cloud, and he's trying to get Cloud away from all of this. He will need Cloud eventually, and I don't know what 100%, I don't know why. Probably because of the black materia, I'm not sure. But it all leads down to that first encounter with Sephiroth. Something else that is extremely telling of Sephiroth being from Advent Children, being from the future, is a later encounter you have with him. This is on the bridge leading to Genova in Hojo's lab, which is a very, very big part in the game. We're now in the Shinra HQ territory. This is like the last, few hours of the game. Cloud is angry. Sephiroth's there. Cloud is in disbelief. He wants to attack him. He's holding up his sword, and then he starts having these spasms. Now, Cloud has these spasms throughout the entire game. Cloud also sees the future throughout the entire game as well, which is also telling of the fact that this is different from the original. Cloud holds his arm, grips his arm. It is in pain, clearly. The game goes as far as stressing his arm. Literally, the camera points directly at his hand, grabbing his arm that is in pain. And at the time, of course, I didn't think this was anything. I thought this is how Cloud was reacting to him being in pain. He's just gripping on something. I don't really know. That is the same arm that has Geostigma in Advent Children. Geostigma, I'm not sure if that's going to have any place in this game at all, but I think that is telling the audience that Cloud is feeling pain that he has felt in the future. And that's crazy and kind of stupid, but the game has to leave these clues to make this revelation tangible in a sense. They have to leave these clues to make it make sense. It has to make sense. So here are the things that tell you that. Also, Sephiroth has a wing. He has a wing in this game. Sephiroth does not have a black one. He's not a one-winged angel until Advent Children. Until that game. That is his final form in Advent Children. He never dons a one wing in the original. Also telling us that he is from the future. Not only that, the final fight with Sephiroth after we destroy Fate, after Sephiroth gets his way, he continues to torment Cloud, and we fight him one last time, or for the first time essentially, but we fight him one last time. This is the final battle of the game. We fight Sephiroth in this weird place. I don't know, it's like a destroyed Midgar. Cloud is jumping around these platforms, and it's a really, really cool fight. I'm not even joking with you. I watched Advent Children like 2 nights ago at the time of recording this. That is almost shot for shot the same exact fight from Advent Children. It is literally the same fight. The things that we're doing, we have to jump from these platforms, Sephiroth hits us across a building, and then we have to go back down. It is identical in a sense. And it's just so, I watched that scene in that movie, in Advent Children, goosebumps just started raising across my arm. I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away that they did this. It's insane. It is absolutely insane. So and this is when he begins to use his one-winged angel form, again telling the player that maybe this isn't the same Sephiroth we know. Because we know in the original that Sephiroth can create forms of himself. He can create these clones of himself. That's his power. He's able to do that because he's a part of the world, essentially, with Genova in this crystallized form. He can do that. But this form seems to have a little more power than some of the clones would have had in the original Final Fantasy VII. This form goes toe-to-toe with Cloud, defeats Cloud, beats him, kind of easily too. We now enter a plane of absolute. Sephiroth calls this place the Edge of Creation. This is literally one of the final scenes in the game. The Edge of Creation, he calls this place. They have a duel there, which is sort of shot for shot of the final battle they have in the original 7, which is, I think, an homage to the original game. I think this is only to satisfy the original fans of the game, because I don't think that the last encounter in this game is going to be anything like the last encounter in the original, so they decided to pull that from here. Like, you know what, let's do this here because we know we're not doing it later, because something is going to be very different later. So let's do it here. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was incredible. They have this fight here. Something else to note, and I noticed recently, is that Cloud actually attempts to do Omni Slash in this fight. He does similar moves. He kind of does an Omni Slash a little bit, but Sephiroth is easily able to knock it aside. He kind of starts doing similar moves that looks, this might be just my observation alone, but it looks like he's attempting to do Omni Slash, but fails. Literally, Sephiroth says, "Not yet, son." Not yet. And which is really cool. Sephiroth speaks to Cloud. He says, "Do you want to join me?" Cloud absolutely doesn't, and I think that Sephiroth already knows that Cloud isn't going to. Sephiroth is trying to do something. and I don't know what. Then he says this line, and this is the line that sort of has a lot of fans on the edge of their seat, has a lot of fans questioning things. No one really knows for sure what this line means. But he says, "You have 7 seconds, Cloud. What are you going to do with it?" Paraphrasing, but this is exactly what he says. Paraphrasing, but this is exactly whatever. What is he referring to? What happens in the original game? One of the biggest moments in the original game. Something that Cloud has future visions of. Literally, future visions of this scene specifically. You know what I'm talking about if you played the game. He has 7 seconds to save Aerith. This is what I'm led to believe. Again, this is all theory. This is all up in the air. This isn't factual. But this is what I believe. Cloud has 7 seconds to save Aerith. And what this essentially does, because a lot of people have deciphered this, I'm not the only one with this opinion, a lot of people have mentioned this. The cutscene where Aerith meets her end is not 7 seconds long, but when Sephiroth drops down, as soon as he makes his presence in that original cutscene, there's 7 seconds that go by as he's falling down and stabbing Aerith. Cloud has 7 seconds to save her. That is what the game is telling the player. Now, I don't know if Sephiroth is mentioning that maybe there's a chance that you can save her this time. This time meaning what? I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if they're ever going to acknowledge the fact that the original game has happened before. We are now in an alternate timeline. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're going to go that far. But that, to me, is very telling on how the future games are going to go and how they're going to deviate from the original. They have to deviate now. Because we defeat the Arbiters of Fate. Something else I should mention that falls in line with Advent Children is that the actual Arbiters of Fate, these wisp, form into this big monster boss thing. And then there's these 3 other Arbiters that defend this boss. And they supposedly take the form of Cloud, Tifa, and Barret. And I thought that was interesting when I was first playing. But then I did a little more research, and it turns out that they're absolutely not Cloud, Tifa, and Barret. Specifically because of their design. There's a character that uses hand-to-hand. He has gloves, but he only has 1 glove. There's a character that uses guns, like Barret. Oh yeah, Barret's gun arm. No, he has 2 guns. And then there's a character that uses a sword, the ghostly form of a character that uses a sword. But it's not a big buster sword, it's like a one-handed sword. So who are these people? What are these Arbiters of Fate taking form of? It's Laz, Kadaj, and Yazoo, who are remnants of Sephiroth and Advent Children, who are there to either do his bidding or they're to defend basically their lives, because if they don't follow that path, don't follow the path that the Arbiters of Fate are setting out for them, they will cease to exist. They won't live at all. Or maybe they're there to tell the player that, hey, Sephiroth is really, really evil, dude. Like, and maybe they realize that, because at the end of Advent Children, we see that Kadaj is sort of at peace at the end, because Aerith speaks to him and realizes his mistakes in a way. I'm not sure. That's sort of left up in the air. It's never explicitly told to us what was, Kadaj's thoughts at that point. Or even Laz or Yazoo or what's going on. It's not a great movie, I won't lie to you. But those characters in particular are very interesting and I think integral. Another person that is very integral to that film is Rufus. And a lot of players were asking, why can Rufus see the ghost at the end? Because of that integral part he plays, detrimental part he plays in Advent Children. So, it all sort of lines up in a way. And again, this is theory. This is not factual. I have to stress that. The next game can completely debunk all of this stuff. This is just what's been going through my head. So we beat the game. Text appears on the screen. And it says, the unknown journey will continue. The unknown, we already know this. The game is not going to be the same. The second game is going to take a lot of liberties, I'm assuming. And the biggest liberty that I am led on to believe is Zack. So if you don't know Zack, Zack is essentially Cloud's alter ego, in a way. It is Cloud's memories. Zack is a real person. Cloud basically put his memories into. Cloud thought that he was Zack at one point in the original game. Zack sacrificed his life to save Cloud. On their way to Midgar, Cloud went to Midgar instead without Zack and became a mercenary, which is what Zack wanted to do with Cloud. And in Advent Children, Zack is very important in Advent Children because he mentions that, like, I'm doing this for you. I'm getting vengeance for you in a sense. Like, I'm glad I'm able to carry your name and use this fighting style and fight in your name in a sense. And it's really beautiful. There's actually an after credit scene regarding Zack. It's actually one of my favorite parts about that movie is his sort of connection with Zack. He like uses the Buster Sword, the original Buster Sword, as like a playstone for his grave in the church, which is spectacular. Really beautiful and touching. So Zack is alive. Basically, we destroy Fate, and now Fate has altered other timelines. And Zack lives in some timeline. He doesn't die, and he goes to Midgar with Cloud. Cloud and Zack are alive in some alternate timeline. Literally going through, on his way to Midgar, we have our other characters leaving Midgar. And we see Zack go through Aerith. And Aerith feels it in a way, acknowledging that perhaps that she knows what's going on. We all know that Aerith she knows more than she's led on to believe. She knows more for sure, that she's not telling the party. And even regarding the Arbiters of Fate, even when she touches Red 13 and essentially tells him what's going on, when she touches Marlene back at the bar, at the time of watching it, the time of playing it the very first time, I didn't think anything of it. But why did that happen when she touched Marlene? I mean, the end of the game, you know how it ends. You see Marlene there. She feels this sort of connection to Aerith now. There's something going on there. There's something happening there. I believe that Marlene knows of these timelines. I believe Aerith does. Because she is connected with the planet. Because she is connected with the life stream. She is an ancient, after all. And this, the way it's sort of demonstrated in the game isn't exactly 100% telling, but she does say some things here and there that absolutely suggested, i.e. knowing Marlene's name before it's ever even spoken to her, and of course the infamous scene of her telling Cloud not to fall in love with her, because she already knows her fate. She already knows what's going to happen to her, or knows that that might have to happen in order to defeat Sephiroth. I don't know for sure, obviously, but that scene in particular in the garden is really heavy, and I didn't understand it before, because, like, why would Cloud be in love with her right now? Like, yeah, they're cutesy-wootsy and, you know, flirting and, you know, sure, but, I mean, that's kind of a silly thing to say right now. No, she's talking about overall, until the point of her death, don't fall in love with me. And that, that hurts even more. It really does. Now, again, Zack is alive in some other timeline. I think that the next game is going to start, we are going to be playing as Zack. I think that the reason why they stress Zack so much at the end, because he kind of just comes out of nowhere, is absolutely telling us that we are possibly going to be playing as him in the next game, and that he has some integral role. He has to do something that alters our timeline. I don't know what, and I don't know how. I don't know if they ever plan on verging and combining these timelines, if Zack can somehow get to Remake's timeline, if he can get to the Cloud that we've been playing as throughout the remake. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know at all. That's where things start getting a little complicated. I typically don't like stories regarding timelines. I think it's a little lazy sometimes. I think it gets extremely convoluted and stupid in a lot of ways. Avengers Endgame dealt with timelines, I thought, appropriately. Like, they did a serviceable job. But there were parts of Endgame that were a little questionable. Like, hang on, if this happened in the... How does that work? Okay. You know what? Sure. I'm not sure how they're going to handle it in this remake saga. But so far, there's a lot of promise for sure. There's a lot of promise. I think that we could be playing as Zack, maybe we have to go on the bombing run with Zack. He promised Cloud that they would be mercenaries in Midgard. They're going to become mercenaries and fight the good fight. I'm assuming they're going to do that, so would Barrett hire Zack and Cloud to do this bombing run with them? Would he just hire Zack? Would Cloud just become a courier? Or what's going to happen there? Obviously, Shinra is going to be after him. They still know that he's alive. So would Roche go after him? I think that Roche is going to have a very important role in the next game as well. I don't think they set that character up for nothing. If Zack is alive and Shinra is actively going after them, we see that at the end. There's guns all over him. Shinra's not playing around. They want Zack dead because he knows of things. They want him dead. Play Crisis Core. There's a lot there. They want him dead for sure. Wouldn't they hire a soldier to do that? Or, sorry, employ a soldier to do that? And we know that Roche is there. He's in Midgar. They're going to have Roche have to hunt after Zack. Like, that is going to happen. And I think that's really interesting because that's Roche from another timeline as well. And there's going to be another Roche going after Cloud, perhaps. I don't know if... They didn't really do much with Roche. He was kind of a mysterious character. He just shows up, wreaks some havoc, and then you don't see him for the rest of the game. And I thought that was kind of odd. But I also think it was kind of purposeful. I think that there is a reason that he was introduced, and I think that he's going to have a lot to do in the next timeline. In Zack's now alive timeline. Now, Sephiroth being from the future, Aerith knowing of this is, Aerith has these visions of the future. Cloud is having visions of the future. I think that the next game we're going to have Cloud have even more visions of the future. Perhaps visions of him eventually killing Aerith. Or visions of Sephiroth killing Aerith and realizing and maybe even talking to Aerith and saying, hey, what is going on right now? What is this happening? Those kinds of things can happen in the sequel, and they're going to be very eerie, very disturbing. The next game is going to be dark, I'm assuming. Not that this remake isn't already dark, but they're going to be dealing with some heavy stuff as well. And I think that is exciting. I think it's really, really exciting. I think Sephiroth essentially in this game is screwing around with Cloud and making him believe certain things, literally to the point of them destroying Fate itself, so that way Sephiroth has essentially full control of their timeline. That way a ghost won't save Barrett next time. That's scary. That's really, really scary that Sephiroth has that control. He's screwing around with Cloud the whole game, but he's also screwing around with the player. He is telling the player that is, oh my goodness. There's a line at the end of the game where he says that the future is not there. The path that you were setting out on is not there yet. And he's telling that to us, the player, that we are not going on the same path that we've been on before. This is going to be something very different. Now, I do believe that the sequel is going to set us out on similar locations. We are going to meet Buchenhagen. We're probably still going to go to Kammel. Everything that has happened in the past has still happened, so Cloud will explain what has happened in the original, in the original game where Sephiroth went crazy. But maybe this time Aerith mentions that, hey, maybe Zack was there. Don't you remember Zack? If you were in first class, you should have met Zack too. And that Cloud's gonna be like, wait, what's going on? Because when she first speaks his name, while they're setting out right beside Sector 7, he like can't hear it. Like he can't even hear Zack's name because he's not supposed to, because Zack does not exist in Cloud's mind at that point. And that's really interesting as well. What if they force that into the what's going on currently? Like, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. The way the game sort of handles these timelines. Biggs is alive? What? What? Is Wedge alive? Did he live? The ghost literally pushed him off Shinra headquarters. I'm not so sure. But Biggs is alive somehow. And then it shows that because, yeah, Fate has been destroyed, so maybe some person has happened upon his body, crushed in the rubble. Like that has happened. Or the fact that the city isn't as destroyed as it was in the original, because maybe the bomb wasn't strong enough. The timeline has been altered, so anything is possible at this point. And that showing of Biggs is very important to that. A scene that follows, or I think it's a scene right before that as well. This is the last sort of note I want to mention, and this is to me really important. Marlene is by her window. She waters her plant, and then she walks away. She waters some flowers, yellow flowers, which are very important. And then she walks away. And then she looks back, and then a drop falls from the flower. This is something I have not heard anyone else mention, by the way. This is my own sort of big brain theory or whatever. a water drop, drops down. And it's kind of odd. She like notices it like, huh? What's going on here? And then she walks back and she's like, oh, is that you, Daddy, or whatever? And then Barrett's reaching out. We go to that scene. I believe that Aerith made a connection with her back at 7th Heaven when, before the plate fell, she was trying to rescue Marlene for Barrett and Tifa. She has this connection with her. She touches her, and then there's this weird, like, that thing that the game does, throughout its entirety. That happens, and you're like, why? Why Marlene? Why would she what's going on right now? I think that Aerith maybe did that unintentionally, I'm not sure, but I think that Aerith told her that, hey, this is everything that's going on right now. I think that Marlene knows what's going on. I think that Marlene knows of these timelines. She's young, obviously, and she can't comprehend it all. But I think that's why she was crying at the bar. I think that's why those things have happened. And it's really interesting. I'm not sure if they're going to do anything with that specifically. But we see that drop of water go down. Now, when I watched Advent Children, at the very end of that movie, there's a big rainstorm that Aerith seemingly calls upon through her grave, through the live stream she does this. And it cures everyone's geostigma. They walk out into the rain, and the rain drips on their infected part of their body, and the geostigma is cured. Which is a beautiful scene. There's also rain at the end of this game as well, as you're leaving Midgar. Looks very similar too. The way it's like hitting the ground, the way it's just like the vibe of it all, it's very similar to Advent Children. On the airship, this is in Advent Children. On the airship, Tifa and the rest of our party are there while Cloud was fighting Sephiroth. They were in the airship. A drop of water gets through, I guess, the windshield or an air duct or something. A drop of water appears in front of the screen and drips down. And Tifa looks up and says, I knew you were always there. I'm assuming, talking about Aerith being there with them the whole time. I see a connection between those two things. In my eyes, I see a connection there. I don't know what it means. I don't know if there is another Aerith that is able to go back in time as well. Perhaps, again, more big brain stuff coming through. Perhaps Aerith speaking to Cloud and saying, hey, don't fall in love with me. Since when was Aerith able to do astral projection? Since when was she able to, like, push herself through the live stream and be able to speak to Cloud while she is imprisoned at Shinra HQ. Like, she doesn't really have those powers. It doesn't really mention it either when you meet back up with her. She doesn't like say like, didn't you get my message or whatever? She doesn't say that. They don't really acknowledge that. Cloud assumes it's a dream. I don't think it's a dream. I think that is perhaps Aerith from the future speaking to Cloud, being very aware that she is going to die later on in this series of games. That's all I'm going to leave things at. My mind has been going crazy. There's so many little things that suggest little things. There's so much stuff. I've been going mad. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been a tough couple of days. It really has. It has been a tough couple of days. I'm gonna say this now. I love this game. I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. It'll probably be my favorite game of this year. I think it's a fantastic game, not only because of its ridiculously convoluted story, but also because the gameplay is spectacular and we're seeing all these amazing things remade, and it's just a touching piece of my heart at this point. A game that has garnered emotions out of me that no other game has before. But I will be the first to admit, I'm not going to dump my head in a pile of sand and just like, not acknowledge that the game has huge issues, including its convoluted story and how that is told to us, the players. That dump truck of just craziness, the last hour of the game is ridiculous. They could have done a better job of veering you on that path. It is ridiculous. It is almost silly, and I kind of laugh at it. There are aspects of the game, other aspects, gameplay aspects in terms of its environments and things like that, that are a little frustrating. But to me, it is a 10 out of 10. I'm able to look past those things because of how I feel towards the series, because of me growing up with this series and it being such an important part of my life, important part of who I am now and what my writing, the things that I do in my life, the characters, again, that I write and stuff like that are heavily inspired by 7 and continue to be. I'll say this right now, like, this remake has, all these years later, over 20 years later, 7 is still inspiring me to write and do interesting things, and that's insane. That's a whole other conversation to be had. It is a fantastic game. Please, please, please comment down below and give me your thoughts on any of these theories in particular, or perhaps your own theory. Let me know how you felt about its ending and what is going on. What is going on in this game and what is going to be going on in its sequel? Is it going to be a trilogy? What are Sephiroth's intentions? Like, obviously he wants to succeed, but in what way? What does he have to do to let that happen? Are there 2 Sephiroths, essentially? What I'm thinking is that Sephiroth is from the future, but I think he's able to sort of project himself into the original Sephiroth as well. Sort of like Days of Future Past, how we don't time travel our bodies, we time travel our conscience, and our conscience enters our past self, and we're able to acknowledge that I have come from the future, and I am now in my past self. Something along those lines. Maybe that's going on with Aerith, maybe that's going on with Sephiroth, maybe he's always able to make these clones of himself because of the Genova cells inside of him or whatever. So, I have no idea. They could introduce something like that. Maybe there is 2 Sephiroths. I'll leave one more thing, actually. This is a prediction on a 3rd game, or maybe the end of the 2nd game. I think that we will see Advent Children Cloud at the end of the next game. I think that Advent Children Cloud, the future Cloud, not future Sephiroth, future Cloud, is going to somehow be made aware of what's going on. Maybe Aerith, the live stream, speaks to him specifically and says, hey, there's some dark stuff going on. Sephiroth is meddling in stuff that he shouldn't be. There's a way where you can stop this. And maybe he's going to be playable. I don't freaking know, man. It's just, like, that sounds so silly, but with what they've set up, this could be something really, really outstanding. It could be something amazing that is not only a pseudo weird reimagining remake of the original game, it is a sequel of the original game, and it spins it on its head. It's like, what even is this? I couldn't even describe to you what you would even call this series of games. Like, that is, it's going to be talked about for decades, the same way the original was. And I think that that was Nomura and Kitase's intentions all along, was to make another game that everyone talks about, new players and old players alike. Anyway, please comment below. I have talked for 40 minutes now. I think it's time to end the video. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed anything that I had to talk about today, and subscribe for more crazy bad theories about Final Fantasy VII, as well as other gaming related videos. You can also follow me on Twitch as well, where I plan on streaming more of the original Final Fantasy VII, just to sort of play through it, you know, having a good time. That's all we're doing, is having a good time. Hope you guys are all staying safe. I hope you guys are all having a good time. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye-bye.